Okay, let's dive into a single chapter today, really unpacking the details found in 2 Chronicles chapter 8.
Right. It's interesting because it shifts focus a bit, doesn't it? Away from just the big stories.
Exactly. Our mission here is to pull out the key insights from this one chapter, just for you, and see what it tells us about, well, the practical side of King Solomon's reign.
It gets into the nuts and bolts, the operational details of running, a major kingdom back then. Less grand narrative, more
Yeah,
logistics.
logistics is a good word. So the text starts right after mentioning the 20 years Solomon spent building. We all know the temple, his palace.
Sure, the famous projects. But this chapter, it highlights other construction. Maybe less glamorous, but still huge.
It talks about him rebuilding villages Hiram had given him, and importantly, settling Israelites there.
And then there's the military side. Capturing Hamath Zobah is mentioned specifically.
Plus strategic building. Cities like Tadmor out in the desert, store cities in Hemath. This wasn't random construction.
Yeah, definitely planned. And look at the detail on fortifications, upper and lower Beth Horon.
Right. It mentions walls, gates, and bars. That's specific. It screams defensive planning, control.
It really does. And the list goes on. Baalath, other store cities, specific cities for his chariots, for his horses.
It basically sums it up as whatever he desired to build across his whole territory, Jerusalem, Lebanon, everywhere. It's ambitious.
An absolutely massive undertaking.
Yeah.
Which naturally leads you to ask.
Who did the work? Yeah. And the chapter is remarkably clear about that.
Very clear. And it draws a really sharp line based on background.
It says the descendants of the non-Israelites left in the land. Let's see, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, Jebusites.
Right. Those specific groups. Their descendants who were still there. They were conscripted for Solomon's slave labor force.
Forced labor. And the text even adds that phrase, as it is to this day, suggesting it wasn't temporary.
No, it implies a lasting structure. These groups form the core of that labor pool for the big building projects.
And the contrast with the Israelites couldn't be starker.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
The chapter explicitly states Israelites were not made slaves for this. Their function was different.
They were his fighting men, his commanders, captains, chariot officers, charioteers.
And chief officials. It even gives a number for those supervisors.
250 supervisors. So it's not just labor, it's a very structured hierarchy, status and roles tied directly to who you were.
Exactly. And this organization, this meticulous structure, it carries over into religion and administration too.
Solomon wasn't just building things, he was organizing worship, keeping the schedule.
Maintaining the daily burnt offerings, following the commands from Moses for Sabbaths, new moons.
And the 3 big annual feasts, unleavened bread, weeks, tabernacles, foundational stuff.
And he didn't just do it, he organized the people doing it. Priests, Levites, gatekeepers.
All appointed according to the divisions his father David had set up.
And the text stresses they followed the king's commands precisely. For duties, for the treasuries, it points to tight control, adherence to the system.
There's also that interesting detail about Pharaoh's daughter, moving her to a new palace.
Because the places the ark had been were considered holy, it shows a real concern for, sacred space, even in domestic arrangements.
Right, and it wraps that section saying the temple work was totally finished, foundation to completion, everything in order.
Okay, so we have building, labor, administration, worship, but the chapter doesn't stop there. It takes us to the coast.
To Ezion, Geber, and Elath, down on the Red Sea, ports.
Which signals trade, and his partnership with Hiram pops up again.
Hiram sending ships, yes, and crucially, commanded by his own officers who knew the sea, experienced sailors.
These crews, Hiram's men and Solomon's men together, they sail to Ophir.
And Ophir means gold, lots of it.
An incredible amount.
Yeah.
450 talents of gold brought back directly to King Solomon.
Now, a talent was, about 75 pounds? So 450 talents.
Well, over 30,000 pounds of gold.
Yeah.
I mean, just think about that influx of wealth.
It's staggering. This shows massive, organized international trade, real economic power projection.
So you pull all these threads together from just this one chapter. What do you get?
You get a picture of a kingdom that's highly organized, strategic building, a very defined labor system based on ethnicity.
Meticulous, religious and civic administration, large-scale international trade, pouring in wealth. It's the practical machinery of Solomon's power.
It shows how it worked day to day, year to year, according to this account. The logistics, the management, the strategy behind the legendary reign.
And looking at these details, you see the complexities. It wasn't just abstract wisdom. It involved concrete, sometimes harsh realities of administration.
Right. It helps you understand the sheer effort involved in running such a powerful kingdom back then.
It really grounds the narrative in practical operations.
So just based on what we've looked at here in Chapter 8, here's something to think about. How might that very detailed organization structuring both the sacred duties and the workforce, with those clear lines drawn between Israelites and non-Israelites, how might that structure itself have been fundamental to maintaining the stability and power of Solomon's kingdom as it's presented right here?